Well, breaking news podcast for all of you. The New England Patriots have traded Joe Milton to the Dallas Cowboys. We'll get into the details in just a minute. My thoughts on the trade. Was it enough? Why'd they do it now? This is Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. Appreciate you joining me on very short notice on this Thursday morning. All right, so we talked about Joe Milton yesterday. And the report from Mark Daniels, Karen Guregian told us that Joe Milton was going to be gone. It was not if, it was when. That was clear by the report. We talked about it yesterday. There's no way that Joe Milton is going to remain with the Patriots after all this stuff had been said, right? You go back to the March tweet from Jordan Schultz saying that Joe Milton and the Patriots trying to work out a trade for him, get him somewhere where he could develop. And then yesterday's report from Daniels and Guregian telling us that Joe Milton wanted a chance to compete for a starting job. Is he going to get that in Dallas? We'll get to that a little bit later. But all of these things told us to be prepared for a trade, to be ready for Joe Milton to be dealt. Now, the details are that Joe Milton and a seventh-round pick traded to Dallas for a compensatory fifth-round pick. Now, the compensatory fifth-round pick, of course, is going to be at the end of the fifth round. Somewhere at the end of the fifth round, that's where the Cowboys would be selecting, I think somewhere in like the 170s. So this is not a middle of the fifth round pick. This is not a top of the fifth round pick. This is a very end of the fifth round compensatory pick. So the value, when you look at it, Joe Milton drafted in the sixth round last year by the Patriots. He gets dealt with the seventh for a fifth round pick. Obviously, that return is much lower than some had thrown out there, including myself, saying, hey, look, if you could trade Joe Milton for a third round pick, you do it every single day of the week, right? If you can get a day two pick for Milton, it's a no-brainer. If you could get a fourth round pick for Milton, that's when you start to think about it, whether or not it's worth it. So is this trade worth it for the Patriots? Did they just give away Joe Milton? Don't forget that in that Mark Daniels, Karen Guregian article yesterday, they wrote that the Patriots would just not give away Milton. They didn't want to just give him away for nothing, right? They didn't want to give him away for free. And some would argue that this is borderline free. A compensatory fifth-round pick is obviously not a third. It's obviously not a fourth. So the return is lower than expected if you are reading some things from some people at certain places, right? And I was hoping, again, a no-brainer kind of deal would have been a third. I was hoping for a fourth. They get a fifth. Trading the seventh isn't really a surprise because this happens a lot in the NFL. When you trade a player, you trade a later round pick, and then you get a pick that's a little bit better because of that. So the market was obviously lower than people think for Joe Milton, right? I would have thought a fourth round pick was reasonable. Third round pick would have been a celebration. And it was lower than that. It was a fifth round pick. The market is the market. I don't think the Patriots traded Joe Milton to Dallas for a fifth round pick if they thought they could get a third round pick for him. That'd be insane, right? If you thought you could get a third round pick for Milton, you're not trading him for a fifth. If you thought you could get a fourth round pick for Milton, you're not trading him for a fifth. If a third was on the table, you're not trading him for a fifth. If a fourth was on the table, you're not trading him for a fifth. Now, you could possibly question whether or not the Patriots did not want to give up a better pick with Milton. Maybe, and we don't know this, but maybe there was a deal that was possible where Joe Milton and let's say a fifth round pick could have gotten you a fourth round pick. But Joe Milton's market was never as good as some people thought that it was. Joe Milton's market was absolutely not as good as many fans thought. I am not one of the people. I've said this from the beginning. I am not one of the people that went bananas over that Buffalo game. I think it's ridiculous to look at, one game against third string / practice squad guys against a team that's trying to lose a football game. I think it's ridiculous to base somebody's value off of that one game, last game of the season, given the circumstances. And obviously the NFL felt the same way. The NFL, looking at Joe Milton, said he's a nice project. He's raw. He's got some talent. But we did not think that he was worth picking last year. And we're not going to give up a 4th-round pick, 3rd-round pick for a guy based on one game at the end of the season against a team that didn't really care about the result. And so if you're another team, sometimes you got to put yourself, I always try to do this, but fans have to do this. Put yourself in the shoes of other NFL teams. Joe Milton, last year, the league saw him as somebody who was not worthy of getting picked until the 6th round. Now he comes in and you don't see him the entire season. He gets thrown into the final game of the season against Buffalo, again, against 3rd-string guys and practice squad guys. There's some schoolyard football, kind of that mentality at times during that game. He makes some plays off his raw talent. If you're an NFL team and you are looking at Milton, was that one game against Buffalo worth giving up a 4th-round pick? Was it worth giving up a day 2 pick? Obviously, the NFL said no. The NFL said, we don't think that it's worthwhile. Now, let's also bring this up. Yesterday, I talked about it, and it was a quick little blurb during that podcast. When you talk about acquiring a pick in next year's draft, the value of that pick in next year's draft is lower than this year's draft. And what I mean by that is if you acquire a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft, it's like acquiring a 4th-round pick in this year's draft. So here's a possibility, and we're all dealing with hypotheticals, right? We're all dealing with hypotheticals. The Patriots could have had, we don't know, but they could have had an offer from a team for a 4th-round pick in 2026. The Patriots could have looked at that and said, we'd rather have the pick this year so we can work on stuff this season, this offseason, instead of waiting for next year's 4th-round pick. They might have thought that was the case. By the way, Phil Perry just tweeted out, per the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, Joe Milton was taken last year with a 6th-round pick. That's 13.8 points. Patriots have 3 7ths. Dallas had 2 comp 5ths. Looks like one game from Milton improved his value by about a half a round. So the NFL says that one game against Buffalo improved Joe Milton's value by about a half a round in the draft. So the return is lower than expected. I think a lot of people are going to be upset about the return and say, you traded him for just a 5th-round pick? That's ridiculous. His market was lower. That's obvious. Now, the question is whether or not was this trade worth it for the Patriots? But before I get to that, and we have a lot to dig into here, before I get into whether or not this trade was worth it for the Patriots and why they pulled the trigger, don't forget to do a couple things for us. And my guy Ram jumps in and says, $15 super chat. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Yes, we're trying to build this community. Let's take advantage of this YouTube algorithm stuff. And the way we do that is we click the thumbs up. More likes means more eyeballs. So don't forget to like as you watch. Don't forget to throw comments in. How do you feel about this trade? Are you upset about this trade? Do you think it's the right move? Do you think the Patriots messed up and didn't get enough? How do you feel about this deal of Joe Milton? Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and of course, don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to hit 6,500 subscribers by the first night of the draft, which is 3 weeks away from tonight. We've got 3 weeks. We've got 3 weeks to gain 160 subscribers. We can do it, but we can only do it with your help. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, Ram, for the $15 super chat. Pat's Pro says this was a quarterback room dynamic move. Not to say that I had info first, but kind of did. Thank you, Pat's Pro, for the $5 super chat. It's very much appreciated. I want to get into those dynamics that Pat's Pro just brought up, because a lot of people will look at this as a football trade and a football trade only as far as on-field product. This goes well beyond that. So was this worth it? Was it worth it for the Patriots to trade Joe Milton and a 7th-round pick to Dallas for a compensatory 5th-round pick? When you put all of the information together, I think it was worth it. And I think it was worth it because of this. Was the value lower? Yes. Again, I would want a 4th-round pick, at least a 4th-round pick. A 3rd-round pick, no brainer. I would have wanted a 4th. A compensatory 5th, there's no doubt you're taking less than what I would have taken in a vacuum. But here is the context. Here is the nuance for even my Spotify people who are watching and listening, right? Don't forget to rate, review, and follow. To my Apple Pods people, don't forget to help a brother out. Here's the context of this deal, because it's not in a vacuum. Joe Milton is not a New England Patriot because Joe Milton did not want to be a New England Patriot. And I think it's as simple as that. Joe Milton did not want to be here. We talked about this yesterday on the podcast when we talked about possible Joe Milton trades. It's obvious back in March that his agent and people around him are leaking things to the media to try to build up his value. The Patriots are trying to build up his value. Everybody involved is trying to build up his value so they can inevitably trade him. That report yesterday told us that Joe Milton does not see himself as a backup. Now, we'll get into Dallas and whether or not he's going to see himself as a backup in Dallas. But if you're the Patriots, this is exactly what we discussed yesterday. If Joe Milton doesn't want to be here, Joe Milton doesn't want to smile and accept being Drake May's quarterback, backup, which again, I don't fault Joe Milton for. If Joe Milton wants to be a starting quarterback, he sees Drake May, he says, there's no shot that I'm going to leapfrog Drake May. That's the guy of this franchise. May is the franchise quarterback for the next decade plus. Joe Milton saw the writing on the wall, and he's saying to himself, I want to go somewhere where I might have a better shot of becoming the starting quarterback eventually. Now, again, is that Dallas? We'll get to it. But if you're the Patriots and you know somebody and Joe Milton doesn't want to fulfill his role, doesn't want to be quarterback too, then do you really want to keep that guy on this roster? Do you want to keep him in the locker room? There was obviously angling happening, right? There was obviously angling happening from the agents, from Milton's side. They wanted to be moved. Mike Vrabel on Monday, when he was asked about Milton, what was the first thing that Mike Vrabel said when he was asked about Joe Milton on Monday down at the owners' meetings? I'm paraphrasing, but he said, guys want to be starters. There are guys that want to start in this league. Mike Vrabel told us. It's not even the quiet part out loud. It's the obvious part out loud. Mike Vrabel told us on Monday that Joe Milton sees himself as a starting quarterback in this league. And he wanted to get out of here because he sees Drake May as the young franchise quarterback, and he knows that that's settled. The Patriots drafted Drake May 3rd overall last year. They're going to give him every single opportunity to be that guy for the next decade and more. We've talked about this all offseason, and we'll continue to talk about it. Personalities matter, right? Personalities matter. Culture matters. Mike Vrabel wants Mike Vrabel guys. Vrabel wants guys who have buy-in. Vrabel wants players who accept their roles. Vrabel wants players who are willing to sacrifice and do whatever they want for the best of the football team. And if Milton doesn't want to be the backup quarterback to Drake May, then he's not sacrificing, right? He's not doing what's best for the football team. Vrabel looks at that and says, do I want Joe Milton in my quarterback room when he's wanting to, not literally, but kneecap Drake May? He wants to be the guy. Remember what happened with Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones? Remember that dynamic? Remember how weird it was? Remember how it almost felt like it was contentious between the two quarterbacks? Remember how that put, Bill Belichick in the crosshairs? And how that really kind of messed with Mac Jones' psyche, and Zappi went in and the crowd was chanting for him. I'm not saying that Mac Jones deserved to be the starting quarterback for the next 7 years. This is not a Mac Jones take. This is a quarterback room dynamic take. Remember how the relationships were in the quarterback room when you had Mac Jones, the presumptive starting quarterback, first-round pick, and you had Bailey Zappi, who was drafted in, the 4th round. You had Bailey Zappi in that room, and Zappi thought that he should be a starting quarterback. Zappi thought that should be his job. And that created pretty much a mess. And it didn't certainly did not help Mac Jones's development. And remember when Mac, again, he's out due to injury, Zappe goes in, and then you had a Monday Night Football game where Mac Jones gets off to a slow start and the entire stadium is chanting for Bailey Zappe. Now, let's push that forward. Imagine if Drake May turns his ankle in week 2. Imagine if Drake May misses, 2 or 3 weeks. Joe Milton goes in there. Joe Milton plays pretty good football. That dynamic again, right? Do some fans want Milton? Do some fans want May? Now, I think some would say, well, Nick, you're crazy because Drake May is much better than Mac Jones. Yes, I mean, the talent is way higher. The ceiling is way higher. But I can tell you, there are people out there that love Joe Milton, believe that Joe Milton could be a starting quarterback in this league, did not want the Patriots to trade Joe Milton, even though they have Drake May. There are a lot of people out there, fan-wise, that wanted Joe Milton on this team and said, no, Joe Milton is too good. Why would you trade him? And some people are angry about getting a 5th-round pick in return. Those are the people that buy the tickets. Those are the people that are going to be sitting at Gillette Stadium. And if Drake May gets dinged up and he misses a couple of games and Joe Milton goes out there and plays pretty good football, I guarantee you there are going to be people at Gillette Stadium when Drake May is ready to come back chanting for Joe Milton. There are going to be Joe Milton signs. I guarantee it. Some of you might think that's crazy. I think it would be borderline nuts. But it is what it is. People fall in love with certain players. Joe Milton is that kind of guy where fans will fall in love because he's got the rocket arm. He's got the great personality. He can do the backflips in the end zone. Do you want that for Drake May? That scenario plays out. Do you want that for Drake May? Do you want that for your 3rd overall pick? Do you want any mess in the quarterback room? This trade happened more so because Joe Milton doesn't want to be a backup quarterback for Drake May, and because the Patriots want to make sure that people in that locker room, in each positional room, they believe in each other and they're doing things for the right reasons. Joe Milton going to Dallas, he might be more willing to accept the backup role because he might see Dak Prescott and say, well, Dak's been here for years. He's a veteran. He's accomplished certain things in the game. Maybe Joe Milton is more willing to accept that role behind a veteran like Dak Prescott. Joe Milton could look at Drake May and see him as the same kind of guy, right? We were in the same draft. I'm older than Drake May. Joe Milton's 25. So Joe Milton might look at Drake May and say, this 22-year-old quarterback ain't better than me. They ain't better than me, right? That's not happening. There's no way that guy is better than me. I can sit there and look at this, and I can say, hey, look, I'll play behind Dak Prescott because he's in his late 20s and has been in the league for a while. I'm going to play behind Drake May, same draft. I'm going to play behind that guy who's 3 years younger than I am when I think I have as much raw talent as he does. Now, Jordan Schultz is tweeting out that Joe Milton became available at the start of the offseason. The Raiders, Eagles, Giants, Steelers, and the Cowboys showed interest. Now, that's fascinating because yesterday's podcast, I named a handful of teams that I thought would make sense, right? On that list were the Giants, were the Steelers, and I also think I mentioned the Raiders, or somebody else mentioned the Raiders. Schultz reports that the Patriots had a better offer for Milton, but chose to send him where he wanted out of respect for him, per source. So if Jordan Schultz's reporting is correct, and that's one source telling Schultz that, if that report is correct, then the Patriots could have gotten a better offer for Joe Milton, and maybe it was a 4th-round pick, but these are semantics games that we can play. These are semantics games that we can play. Jordan Schultz says the Patriots had a better offer on the table for Joe Milton, but decided to trade Joe Milton to Dallas to do right by the player. That could be one read. Was the better deal a pick this year? Or was a better deal giving up a pick next season, right? As I said, if the Steelers offered the Patriots a 4th-round pick in 2026, that value is even pretty much to a 5th-round pick in 2025. So I want more details. I want more details. Okay? So I don't know if I completely buy the Jordan Schultz thing where, the Patriots had a better offer on the table and they just wanted to do right by Joe Milton. That could be cleaning up some things. That could be the Patriots or Joe Milton's agent making the Patriots look better by saying, they did right by the player, right? Now, if a deal was on the table and it was better than a compensatory 5th-round pick in this year's draft and the Patriots sent Joe Milton to the Cowboys, I would have taken the better offer. But now you get into all the different layers of being a sports franchise and how you treat players. How you treat players matter. I would have dealt Joe Milton somewhere else if I can get a better pick than a compensatory 5th. I would have said, hey, Joe, look, we're sending you there because you got a better shot of succeeding there. You've got a better shot of becoming a starting quarterback in Pittsburgh, for example, than you do in Dallas. Let's not forget that these reports, right, the Jordan Schultz tweet, he's getting that from somebody. He's getting that information from a source. And there's a reason why that source is giving Jordan Schultz that information. We can't forget that, especially when it's a single-sourced tweet. So whoever told Jordan Schultz, we could have got a better deal for Milton, but we sent them to Dallas, or they sent them to Dallas because they wanted to do right by Joe Milton. What's the angle from that person leaking the information to Jordan Schultz? We always have to think about that. But to get back to the idea of, hey, look, this guy doesn't necessarily want to be here. He's not going to be happy here. We are trying to reset the culture. We are trying to get players into this locker room that believe in the vision, that believe in their role, that believe in the coaching staff. And we don't think Joe Milton is going to be that kind of guy. We don't think Joe Milton, it seems to me, had expressed to the Patriots that he did not want to have the role that they envisioned him having. So why would you want that guy in the locker room, right? I have no problem trading Joe Milton. I had no problem trading Joe Milton before we knew how he felt. I have absolutely zero problem trading Joe Milton after knowing he doesn't want to be the backup in New England. He doesn't want to back up Drake May. If he doesn't want to be here and he doesn't want to back up your franchise quarterback, then you move on, right? You move on from him. I think people will be upset about the 5th-round pick. And again, the NFL is telling us that he was not worth a 3rd-round pick. Now, the Jordan Schultz thing, I don't know. I don't know what kind of pick they could have had on the table. I have no idea. No idea. But personality matters. Culture matters. Vrabel wants his guys. Do you want a malcontent in that quarterback room getting in the way of Drake May's development? You want to streamline this thing as much as you can. You want to make sure that Drake May is the man in that room, and the people that are in that room with Drake understand that they are there to help support Drake May. Say what you want about Joshua Dobbs, but Dobbs knows his role. Dobbs understands I'm a backup quarterback. He understands that his job is to support and prepare Drake May week in and week out. Joe Milton, if he believes he should be starting over Drake May or wants to start over Drake May, is he truly going to do the things that he should be doing to help May develop week in and week out? J1988, why are you calling Milton a malcontent? I did not call him a malcontent. Words are important. I said if he's going to be a malcontent, if he doesn't want to be a backup quarterback to Drake May. Jay, we have several reports, pretty much by everybody, that Joe Milton did not want to back up Drake May. It was said back a month ago. It was said this week by Mike Vrabel. So if Joe Milton doesn't want to back up Drake May, and he is stuck here for the 2025 season backing up Drake May, do you not think it's possible he could become a malcontent? He could become unhappy? Could you not argue that he's already unhappy and that's why he's been traded, because he did not want to be the backup to Drake May? So that's why I said that. The Patriots drafted and developed Drake May for year one. So here's my question to you. Do you have the same kind of trust that the team that drafted Drake May and started to develop May through year one, do you trust their evaluation of Joe Milton? Do you trust their evaluation of where he is mentally? Right? Sivan, can we not do this? Can we not do this? I appreciate you, but can we not do this? Yes, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick, okay? But can we not do this? Can we not do that to Joe Milton? We can't sit there and say Tom Brady was a 6th round pick, so Joe Milton could end up being, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, could be absolutely spectacular. 2 different quarterbacks. Can we just not do that? It's not fair to Joe Milton. So the team that drafted Drake May, developed Drake May through year one, they're telling you they believe Drake May is the better quarterback. That's why they drafted Joe Milton in the 6th round. There's a reason why Joe Milton fell to the 6th round to begin with. Do you trust the Patriots in evaluating Joe Milton? Because if you trust the Patriots made the right move by drafting Drake May and developed Drake May the way they did through year one, then I think you should trust them in their evaluation of Joe Milton. And they believe they got to move on from this dude because they don't want anything to get in the way of May's growth and development. Now, why do you deal Joe Milton before the draft? Yesterday's report said, and don't forget, by the way, to help us out, like, comment, and subscribe. Helps us with the algorithm. Like, comment, and subscribe. Trying to get to 6,500 subscribers by the first round of the draft, which is 3 weeks. 3 weeks from tonight. Why did the Patriots pull the trigger now? We'll get to that in a minute. First, JB Brown sends a $10 super chat. Thank you, JB. This was a strange return. Felt like they could have gotten a bit more. That said, I've done at least 150 Pro Football Focus mocks, and there's a lot of quality in rounds 2 to 6 this year. Be funny to get yours with it. I want to stick a pin in that from JB Brown because it perfectly transitions me to why the Patriots made this move when they made the move. Thank you, JB, for the $10 super chat. Yesterday, we talked about Mark Daniels and Karen Gorigian's article. And in that article, it said that it was more likely the Patriots would wait until after the draft to pull the trigger on a Joe Milton trade. So why is the deal done before the draft? Because that flies in the face of what that report was yesterday. Here's a couple of things. Trading Joe Milton now gives Joe Milton an opportunity to get into voluntary workouts with his new team, to get to camp, to work with his new team, to learn the playbook. It gives him, for all intents and purposes, a full offseason so he can acclimate himself to the new program. So that's number one. So if we believe in Jordan Schultz's report that the Patriots sent Joe Milton to Dallas, in part because Joe Milton wanted to go to Dallas, if we're going to roll with that report, then one reason why you make the deal right now is because you give Joe Milton an opportunity to go down to Dallas, work with the coaching staff, learn the playbook, get a full voluntary program in, get a full OTA in, get a full camp in, get a full preseason in, right? This gives Joe Milton the best opportunity to ingratiate himself to the Dallas Cowboys. The second reason why you would pull the trigger on this deal, I want to pull up JB Brown's super chat again. The second reason why you would make this deal at this time is because the draft is coming up. And if you're the Patriots, we mentioned this on the podcast yesterday. If you're the Patriots, I believe what you're looking at here is Drake May, starting quarterback, Joshua Dobbs, backup veteran quarterback, and then your third quarterback will be a young quarterback that you draft, right? And this is an age-old philosophy, and you can go back to the Green Bay days years ago, which is you draft a quarterback every year if you can draft a quarterback every year, because you just keep taking swings. You keep, buying lottery tickets, so to speak, at that position, because if you hit multiple times at that position, you're going to end up getting value back, et cetera, et cetera. So the Patriots now can go into the draft knowing that in a perfect world, if a quarterback is there that they like in the late rounds, in the mid to late rounds, they now draft that quarterback, and that quarterback slides right into number 3, and you don't have to worry about now being held over a bucket by other teams saying they need to trade Joe Milton because they just drafted so-and-so. The name I keep bringing up is Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, and it's not just because I'm a Notre Dame football fan. I've brought Riley Leonard up multiple times during this podcast over the last couple of months because I believe Riley Leonard is the type of player that Mike Vrabel would love. He plays hard. He plays with finish. He's a great team leader. He has a very similar frame as Drake May. He has some of the same athletic traits as Drake May. He ran an offense that I do think is going to be a little bit more similar this year in Foxborough. Last year at Notre Dame with Denbrock, I think, the quarterback design runs all of those things, right? So, maybe the Patriots look at Riley Leonard and they can draft Riley Leonard in like the 5th round and be like, okay, now we replace Joe Milton with Riley Leonard. He's our young quarterback who's going to back up Drake May eventually. And Riley Leonard maybe, is more willing to accept that to start his career than Joe Milton was. Not coming out in the same draft class as Drake May like Joe Milton was. So I bring up names like, Riley Leonard. I think Quinn Ewers, JB brought him up. He's probably going to go a little bit higher. He's probably going to go in like round 3. But this gives the Patriots an opportunity, making this trade now, to go into the draft and to address the young quarterback position, right? That roster spot. They can address that on draft weekend now. Maybe it's even an undrafted guy, right? But they now have the opportunity to bring in a young quarterback out of the draft and say, okay, you're now our 3rd quarterback, our emergency quarterback. So it lines up, as we talked about yesterday, with Drake May, veteran backup quarterback, young quarterback out of the draft in that 3rd spot. And that's your quarterback room. And everybody knows their role. Everybody understands their role. Everyone accepts their role. And everybody is working in collaboration to make sure you get the best Drake May that you can get in 2025. And if somebody doesn't want to be in that room, then that could be, an issue. Right? So that's the setup they have. Now, as far as Joe Milton, it's interesting. Joe Milton goes to Dallas, and it makes you wonder. Is like Dak Prescott getting traded? I can't imagine Dak Prescott is going to get traded. I can't imagine he's going to be gone. So Joe Milton is going to be the backup in Dallas. I don't think he's going to even compete for the job. I just don't think you're going to see it. That's Dak's job. They paid him a ton of money. Dak Prescott is the franchise quarterback of the Cowboys. So it'll be fascinating to see how Joe Milton handles that. Again, it's different because Dak Prescott is a veteran. He's been in the league for a while, right? For a number of years now. He has taken his team to the playoffs. He is older than Joe Milton. He was not drafted in the same class as Joe Milton. So Joe Milton, I would imagine, will walk into Dallas feeling differently if he has to back up, which seems inevitable, if he has to back up Dak Prescott. Because he can look at Dak and say, no, he's a veteran. He's been a starting quarterback for a number of years. He's taken this team to the playoffs. I can learn from Dak Prescott. I don't think Joe Milton believed that he can learn from Drake May, and I get it. I imagine that Joe Milton looks at Drake May as more of an equal as Dak Prescott. And that's the issue, is Joe Milton's looking at him saying, Drake May's year 2, I'm year 2. He was drafted last year. I was drafted last year. I seen him at practice. I know how I practice, and I think I'm better than that guy. I think I should be competing for a starting job against this guy. And the Patriots obviously disagree. And that's why you draft Drake May 3rd and you draft Joe Milton in the 6th round. We also have to acknowledge that the most popular player on a team is the backup quarterback for a number of reasons, a lot of different ways, right? Like, the backup quarterback is always Bailey Zappi. You can go back to like Michael Bishop. People love the backup quarterback. The backup quarterback usually gets sprinkled in the preseason against backups. He gets thrown into the regular season in a game like last year, week 17 against Buffalo, a team that doesn't care about the game, playing third stringers and practice squad guys. The backup quarterback inevitably looks better because he's playing against lesser competition. I mean, this is historically speaking, this is what happens a number of times. So that the backup quarterback becomes the apple of the eye. Right? So I'm not surprised that a lot of people will be upset. I'm not surprised that a lot of people, say, you traded him for a 5th. What are we doing? I'm not surprised that a lot of people will say the Patriots should have held on to him. Again, this is not fantasy football. We're not just talking about on the field. We're not just talking about talent and all. Personalities count. The dynamics count. Do you want somebody here who doesn't want to be here? That's my simple question to you. If you're unhappy with this trade, do you want somebody here who doesn't want to be here? Do you want to date a girl or date a guy who doesn't want to date you anymore? Right? And, so trading Joe Milton, I think, to me, is not a surprise. What they got for him in return is the surprise. But I don't think the Patriots would have turned down a 3rd-round pick in this year's draft. That's just my guess, okay? I don't think that if a team put a 3rd-round pick on the table for Joe Milton, I don't think, no matter what Jordan Schultz tweets out, I don't think the Patriots would have said, you know what, we're not going to take that 3rd-round pick. We're going to take a compensatory 5th. That makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. They're not going to turn down a 3rd-round pick. I don't think they turned down a 4th-round pick. If there was a better return on the table, I believe the Patriots would have taken that better return. No matter how, fluffy we want to make the story of they wanted to help Joe Milton and sent him down to Dallas, that could have been part of it. But if there was a significant gap in value, no, I don't think the Patriots would have traded Joe Milton for a compensatory 5th if they could have gotten a 3rd. And if they did that, it's an abominable move and it's ridiculous and it's terrible. I just don't think that was on the table. So there's no team in the NFL that would take that. No team. And so if you believe in Mike Vrabel's vision, if you believe in Mike Vrabel wanting the right culture, if you believe in Vrabel, moving guys out if they're not going to fully fit. I know there's been some talk about, hey, look, I think it was Pat's Pro said, hey, look, Joe Milton was a Gerard Mayo guy. Maybe that had to play a little bit of a role. Maybe Joe Milton was a Gerard Mayo guy. Maybe Mayo was the guy who wanted to pick Joe Milton. I don't know. Maybe Joe Milton was an Alex Van Pelt pick. I have no idea. But it's rather simple. Remove emotion. And I know it's difficult for people to remove emotion. But do you think the Patriots would trade a quarterback that they believed had starting quarterback potential? Do you think they would move that guy? First, do they believe that about Joe Milton? Second, do you think they would move that guy for a compensatory 5th-round pick if there wasn't a reason to move the guy? Now, they could end up being wrong. And this move might blow up in their face. Right? Kind of confused by Kevin O'Malley. Nick, this is nonsense. Players want to play. Not sure what that's referencing. I've said I don't fault Joe Milton for wanting to be a starting quarterback. I said that. I said it multiple times yesterday. I said it multiple times on this podcast, on this live stream. I don't blame Joe Milton for looking at it and saying, I think I'm better than Drake May, and I don't want to be behind Drake May. I don't fault the player for that. He's 25. He's trying to get his. I don't fault him for that. But I'm talking about the team. If you're the team, do you want that guy in the quarterback room? If you think it's going to screw up the dynamic, if you think it's going to get in the way of Drake May's development, if you think that Joe Milton is going to be unhappy and he's going to be walking around unhappy, do you want that? Do you want that as part of this team? And obviously the answer is no from Mike Vrabel. And I agree. I would not want somebody who doesn't want to be here. I'm not faulting him for not wanting to be here. I'm not faulting him for his reasons. I'm not sitting here telling you that Joe Milton should be, a good Boy Scout and back up Drake May and be happy. No, if he doesn't want to do it, then you don't make the guy do what he doesn't want to do. If he wants to move on and go somewhere else and he wants to be, a starting quarterback for another franchise and he believes he's better than Drake May and he believes he should be, the guy starting, and you disagree with him, then what do? It's in any business. If you have somebody in your business that's unhappy, do you just keep them there? Do you keep them there to just keep them there? Or do you say this person doesn't want to be here? This person believes they deserve more, have earned more, and they want more. And you don't fault that person for feeling that way, but you move on and you say, at this moment in time, that's not the role that we see you having, Joe. We understand that you want to be a starting quarterback, but, we just don't see that. Drake May's our guy. And there's no doubt the agent is talking to the team. That happens all the time. I can guarantee you the agent is talking to the Patriots and letting them know how his client feels. And if the agent is coming to you saying, I don't want to, Joe wants a shot to start somewhere. Can you do something and move on? Can we work on something to get Joe somewhere else? Or he wants to, learn from a quarterback who's a veteran, who's been starting in this league for years. Can we work on something? Those conversations happen all the time. I don't think the Patriots woke up this morning and said, we're going to trade Joe Milton for a compensatory 5th-round pick just to trade Joe Milton for a compensatory 5th-round pick. If you want to believe that, cool. If you want to believe that, awesome. You can believe that. We all have opinions. I don't think the Patriots were trying to deal Joe Milton for a 5th-round pick. Cobalt, $5 super chat. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, by the way. Why would the Rams not try and trade for Milton since Van Pelt is there? I don't know. I mean, the Rams, they've got Stafford. They brought back Jimmy G. Maybe they don't think Joe Milton is a quarterback that can fit their system. Maybe they don't believe that he's, a great fit on the field. Maybe they feel like he's not a great fit in the quarterback room. Maybe they feel I have no idea. Maybe they're not worried about quarterback. Maybe they sit there and say, hey, Matthew Stafford's our guy for the next couple of years. We got Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup. We're not going to trade a pick for somebody who's not going to play. And again, would Joe Milton want to go to go to L.A.? I mean, Dallas moved on from Cooper Rush, right? Cooper Rush is now in Baltimore. So, Milton has a legitimate shot and should be Dallas's backup quarterback, right? If Joe Milton went to L.A., he could end up being the 3rd-string quarterback behind Stafford and Garoppolo. And I don't think Joe Milton would want to be the, 3rd-string quarterback behind Stafford and Garoppolo. Joe Milton's one injury away from being the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And there is some gravity to that, right? Dak Prescott's been injured a lot. Maybe that's part of Joe Milton's thought process. Maybe Joe's looking at it and saying, Dak Prescott has broken down multiple times in his career. I go to Dallas. It's the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to have primetime games. They're one of the biggest, organizations in all of professional sports in this country. If I go to Dallas, then if Dak Prescott gets injured, now I'm the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. There is some, as they say, gravitas. There's some gravitas to this, right? And Dak has that injury history. And he's a veteran quarterback that maybe Joe Milton just respects a heck of a lot more than he respects Drake May as far as what they've done. And that would be understandable because Drake May's played, 11 games, 10 games in his NFL career? It's a landing spot that I did not anticipate. All right, let's get to the other part of this for the Patriots. The Patriots now have another pick. And I know it's a compensatory fifth. And I know people there are a lot of people that I'm sure are not happy about the return, and we've discussed it. The return is the return. We've addressed it. We now look at what the Patriots can do with that, right? Of course, it's a compensatory fifth round pick. Now, it's funny. People will be upset about the compensatory fifth round pick, and I get it. But some of those people are the same people telling us how Joe Milton should have been worth more in a return when he was a sixth round pick last year. So going off that logic, if you are a Joe Milton lover, well, guess what? The Patriots just got a better pick than what Joe Milton was last year. And maybe they draft somebody who's better than Joe Milton with the compensatory fifth round pick, right? Or that doesn't work because you haven't seen the player yet. You didn't fall in love with him. So you've got a fifth round pick. You have another asset. You have another pick that you can use. You have other picks now that you can move around. You can move up the board. You can move down the board. You could take the Matthew Judon third round pick to move up into the first round if you want to do that, if you combine it with number 38. You can now take your fifth round pick and a fourth round pick to move up into the third round because now you have that compensatory fifth. So now you're more than willing to give up a fifth round pick as a sweetener. So obviously a third round pick would have been awesome and we would have been throwing a parade and it would have been a no-brainer. But they got what they got. And I believe they got what they got because there wasn't much better on the table. And they wanted to move on from Joe Milton. They wanted to get him out of the quarterback room and get him somewhere else, which is what he wanted. He wanted to go somewhere else. So they sent him somewhere else, and now they get that compensatory fifth. And so now you have an extra pick. So between the Judon pick and the compensatory pick, you now have two picks via trades that you can work with in this draft. In this draft, we've talked about it from the beginning. We always talk about the fourth pick, right? For obvious reasons. We talk about the 38th pick. But, rounds 3 through 5 in this draft, there's going to be a lot of depth that is going to be good, legitimate NFL depth that falls because there's going to be a lot of defensive linemen taken. You get into the middle rounds, cornerback gets interesting. This draft is loaded with running backs. Here's an example. Let me give you a hypothetical. What if this compensatory fifth round pick becomes a running back selection? And we just look at that possibility. Running back is incredibly deep in this draft. Running back is insanely deep, right? You could have 20 guys drafted, 25 guys drafted at the running back position in this draft. What if you get your running back of the future as that compensatory fifth round pick? What if that compensatory fifth round pick opens up the opportunity for you to trade your fifth round pick? See if the Patriots have one. I want to make sure that the Patriots have a fifth round pick. I think they do. I think they have no sixth round pick. I think they have 3 sevenths. I just want to make sure that we're being accurate here. Yeah, they have a fifth round pick. They have 144. So if you're the Patriots, what if you trade pick 144 and a future pick to move up into the fourth round to get a tight end? What if that tight end becomes your tight end of the future? Now, of course, you can swing and miss on all of these picks, and none of us should be super confident given the recent drafts that the Patriots are going to just hit home run after home run. But the idea is you get this compensatory fifth round pick, and now it gives you more artillery heading into draft night. And now you have more picks to deal with to get better value, to bring in somebody that you might not have had a shot, right? Maybe it's that running back. Maybe it's that tight end. Maybe it's a defensive end that you move up for. Maybe it's Riley Leonard as the quarterback. And he ends up being your backup to Drake May for the next 7 years once Dobbs is out of the way. So now you've got some ammunition. And we're not even talking about possibly, trading down from 4 and picking up even more picks. So this gives the Patriots flexibility. It gives them fluidity throughout the draft to move to different spots. And now if you want to draft a running back in the 3rd round or 4th round, now you might be able to do that and feel better about it because now you have an additional pick in the 5th round that you might be able to spend on an interior defensive lineman or interior offensive lineman. Right? So now we see. Now we see what they do. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Those 3 things are critical to building this community. Click that like button if you're watching us, that thumbs up button on YouTube. You can like us on Facebook as well. Throw a comment in. I'm going to look back at these comments. I'm sure a lot of people are angry at me. I'm sure a lot of people are unhappy with this trade. I'm sure a lot of people felt like Joe Milton was going to get a 2nd-round pick or 3rd-round pick in return. But if I'm the Patriots and I've got somebody who's unhappy, he doesn't want to be here, I'm going to move on from that guy. It's just a principled thing. It's a philosophical thing. I'm not in the business of keeping people who are going to be unhappy in the program. And I think it's obvious with all the reporting the last month or so, Joe Milton would have been unhappy staying here, backing up Drake May. So now you get what you can get. You field them. You field all the offers. You get what you can get. You move on and you focus on the draft and what you can do now with all of those assets that you have in the draft. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, people, I appreciate every single one of you. I guess we'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern, live right here on YouTube, unless something breaks again. I appreciate every single one of you. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I do appreciate every single one of you for taking your time and watching, listening to this stream. And it's Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast.